On July 8, 2014, security cameras at Varna airport in Bulgaria captured footage that has been viewed millions of times online. A 28-year-old German tourist is seen walking through the airport. Suddenly, he freezes. Terror crosses his face. Then he runs, sprinting through the terminal, bursting through doors, scaling a fence, and disappearing into a sunflower field. The man in that footage is Lars Mittank. And from the moment he ran from that airport, he has never been seen again. But the footage is just the end of a story that gets stranger the more you learn. In the days before Lars ran, he became increasingly paranoid. He believed people were following him. He locked himself in a hotel room. He called his mother begging for help. He told friends he was in danger. Was Lars experiencing a psychotic break? Was he on drugs? Or was he really in danger from someone or something? 10 years later, despite that security footage showing exactly where and when Lars disappeared, despite massive searches, despite international media attention, nobody knows what happened to Lars Mittank. This is his story. The Lars Mittank case is unique in the world of missing persons investigations because we have something almost no other case has: clear video footage of the moment of disappearance. We can watch Lars run. We can see the terror on his face. We can trace his exact movements. And yet, despite this incredible evidence, Lars vanished so completely that a decade of searching has found nothing. This case has everything: international intrigue, suspicious characters, possible head trauma, mental health crisis, conspiracy theories, and a family that has never stopped searching. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge Lars's family, particularly his mother, Sandra Mittank, who has dedicated the past decade to finding her son. If you have any information about Lars Mittank's disappearance, please contact German or Bulgarian authorities. Now, let's go back to 2014, to a young German man whose vacation in Bulgaria would end in one of the most disturbing and mysterious disappearances caught on camera. Lars Mittank was born on February 9, 1986, in Berlin, Germany. He grew up in a working-class family in eastern Germany in the years after German reunification. Lars was described by those who knew him as friendly and outgoing, athletic and physically active, a hard worker who took his responsibilities seriously, someone who enjoyed socializing and being with friends, generally happy and well-adjusted, not someone prone to anxiety or paranoia. Lars attended school in Berlin and, after completing his education, began working in various jobs. He wasn't wealthy, but he worked steadily and enjoyed a normal life. By his mid-20s, Lars had settled into adult life. He worked in construction and similar trades. He lived independently. He had a steady girlfriend. He had a close group of male friends. He enjoyed sports, particularly football, soccer. He liked to travel when he could afford it. Those close to Lars emphasized that he was not someone with mental health issues, drug problems, or any tendency toward erratic behavior. He was, by all accounts, a normal, stable young man. Lars had a close relationship with his mother, Sandra. They spoke regularly and had a warm, affectionate relationship. Sandra knew her son well, his personality, his habits, his moods. This close relationship would become crucial in the days before Lars disappeared, because Sandra would be one of the last people to speak to him, and she would immediately recognize that something was terribly wrong. By summer 2014, Lars was 28 years old. He was working, living his life, and looking forward to a vacation with friends. In late June 2014, Lars and a group of his male friends planned a trip to Bulgaria. This was a lad's holiday, a group of guys going to a beach resort to relax, party, and enjoy summer. They chose Golden Sands, a popular resort town on Bulgaria's Black Sea coast. Golden Sands is known for beautiful beaches, affordable prices, especially for Western Europeans, active nightlife with bars and clubs, being a popular destination for young European tourists. The plan was simple: spend about a week in Golden Sands, enjoy the beach, go out at night, relax, and have fun. It was supposed to be a normal, uneventful vacation. Before leaving for Bulgaria, Lars was in good spirits. He was excited about the vacation. He had no problems at work or in his personal life. He wasn't stressed or anxious. He hadn't been using drugs. He had no mental health issues. Sandra, his mother, later emphasized this point repeatedly. Lars was completely normal before the trip. There were no warning signs, no concerns, no indication that anything was about to go wrong. Lars traveled with approximately 4 to 5 friends. Exact number varies in reports. These are guys he'd known for years, close friends he trusted and felt comfortable with. The group dynamics were normal. They were going on vacation together because they enjoyed each other's company. There were no conflicts, no tensions, no problems within the group. Lars and his friends flew to Varna, Bulgaria, and made their way to Golden Sands. They checked into their hotel, a modest but decent accommodation typical for the area. The first few days of the vacation were completely normal. They went to the beach during the day. They explored the resort town. They went out to bars and clubs at night. They ate, drank, and relaxed. Everything was exactly as expected for a group of young men on vacation. Lars was enjoying himself. He called his mother and girlfriend from Bulgaria, telling them he was having a great time. Everything was fine. And then, on July 6, 2014, something happened that would trigger a chain of events leading to Lars's disappearance. To understand what happened to Lars Mittank, we need to understand the context of his vacation in Bulgaria and the culture of Golden Sands. Golden Sands, Bulgaria. Golden Sands is a resort town on the Black Sea coast, about 17 kilometers from the city of Varna. It's popular with tourists from across Europe, particularly from Germany, UK, and Eastern European countries. The town caters to young tourists looking for affordable beach vacations, active nightlife, bars and clubs, a party atmosphere. It's not a luxury destination. It's a place where young people on budgets can afford to have a good time. The nightlife in Golden Sands revolves around beach bars, nightclubs, drinking establishments, a somewhat wild, party-oriented atmosphere. It's generally safe, but like any tourist destination with heavy drinking, there can be incidents, fights, theft, etc. For the first 4 to 5 days of the vacation, late June into early July 2014, Lars and his friends fell into a routine. Days. Wake up late. They were out at night. Go to the beach. Swim, sunbathe, relax. Light drinking during the day. Evenings/nights. Shower and get ready. Go out to dinner. Hit the bars and clubs. Drink, socialize, enjoy the nightlife. Return to hotel in the early morning hours. This was a typical young men's vacation. Nothing unusual. Nothing concerning. During these first few days, Lars's friends later reported that he was in good spirits, enjoying himself, drinking but not excessively more than anyone else, not acting strangely, not showing any signs of paranoia or mental distress, just being normal Lars. Lars called or texted his mother and girlfriend several times during the first part of the vacation. He told them about the beach, the weather, what they were doing. He sounded happy and relaxed. He gave no indication anything was wrong. The conversations were normal, routine check-ins. Sandra later said that during these calls, Lars sounded exactly like himself. Nothing in his voice or words suggested he was troubled. On July 5th, about 5 to 6 days into the vacation, Lars and his friends went out as usual. They spent the evening bar hopping in Golden Sands, drinking and socializing. The group was in good spirits. They were having fun. It was just another night of vacation. In the early morning hours of July 6th, technically very late on July 5th, Lars and his friends were at a bar or club in Golden Sands. And this is where everything started to go wrong. What happened next is somewhat unclear because accounts vary and it occurred late at night when everyone had been drinking. But here's what we know. Lars got into an altercation with other tourists. Reports suggest they were German or possibly Russian tourists. The exact cause of the altercation is disputed. Some reports say it was over football, soccer, Lars supporting one team, others supporting a rival team. Other reports suggest it started over something minor that escalated. Some accounts suggest Lars may have been involved in trying to break up a fight. Whatever the cause, the altercation became physical. Lars was hit in the head. Multiple reports confirm that Lars took a blow to his ear/side of his head. The blow Lars received was significant enough to cause his ear to burst/rupture, result in visible injury, cause pain and discomfort, require medical attention. Lars's friends helped him. They got him away from the altercation. They checked on his injury. Lars's eardrum had ruptured. This is a painful injury, but generally not life-threatening. It can heal on its own, though it's important to keep the ear clean and dry, and it's recommended to see a doctor. After the altercation, Lars and his friends left the area. They went back to their hotel. Lars's friends helped clean up his injury. They discussed whether Lars needed to see a doctor. Lars was shaken, but seemed okay otherwise. The group decided Lars should see a doctor, but they'd wait until morning when clinics would be open. July 6th, 2014, morning/afternoon. The next day, Lars went to a medical clinic in Golden Sands or Varna. Reports vary on exact location. The doctor examined Lars's ear injury. The doctor determined Lars's eardrum had indeed ruptured. The injury would heal, but needed care. Lars should not fly for a period of time. Fly with a ruptured eardrum can cause complications due to pressure changes. Lars was given antibiotics and possibly pain medication. Lars was told to keep his ear dry and clean. Here's where things get complicated. The group's vacation was scheduled to end on July 7th, 2014. Everyone was supposed to fly home to Germany on that date. But now Lars had a medical restriction. He couldn't fly. The group had to make a decision. Should everyone stay in Bulgaria until Lars could fly? Should Lars stay alone while the others return home? What should they do? After discussion, the decision was made. Lars's friends would fly home as scheduled on July 7th. Lars would stay in Bulgaria an extra day or two until clear to fly. Lars would book a new flight once the doctor said it was safe. Lars would be alone, but it was only for a day or two. This seemed like a reasonable solution. Lars was 28 years old. He was in a tourist area. It was just a couple of extra days. He'd rejoin his friends in Germany soon. But this decision, Lars staying alone in Bulgaria, would prove to be fateful. The head injury Lars sustained in the early hours of July 6th, 2014, is crucial to understanding what happened next. Let's examine this injury in detail and what it might have caused. Lars was hit in the side of the head, near/on his ear. The blow was hard enough to rupture his eardrum, a tympanic membrane perforation. A ruptured eardrum is when the thin membrane separating the outer ear canal from the middle ear tears or ruptures. This can happen from trauma, being hit, as in Lars's case, loud noises, pressure changes, infections. Symptoms include ear pain can be severe, bleeding or discharge from the ear, hearing loss or muffled hearing, ringing in the ear, tinnitus, dizziness or vertigo, sometimes nausea. Complications. While ruptured eardrums usually heal on their own, complications can include infection, if bacteria enter through the rupture, hearing loss, usually temporary, sometimes permanent, chronic ear infections. But here's what's most relevant to Lars's case. If the blow to Lars's head was strong enough to rupture his eardrum, could it have caused other damage? Medical experts who have reviewed Lars's case have noted that a blow hard enough to rupture an eardrum could potentially cause concussion, mild traumatic brain injury, bleeding in or around the brain in severe cases. Symptoms of TBI can include headaches, confusion or disorientation, memory problems, mood changes, anxiety or paranoia, personality changes. These symptoms can appear immediately or develop over hours or days after the injury. Did Lars have TBI? We don't know for certain because no CT scan or MRI was done at the time. The doctor in Bulgaria only examined the ear injury. No neurological assessment was performed. Lars's head wasn't fully evaluated beyond the visible injury. This is not necessarily the doctor's fault. In a tourist clinic treating a ruptured eardrum, they focused on that injury. Unless Lars reported concerning symptoms, a full neurological workup wouldn't be standard. But what if Lars did have a TBI? This could explain much of what happens next in Lars's story. TBI, even mild, can cause paranoia, anxiety, irrational fears, changes in perception, difficulty thinking clearly. Hold this possibility in mind as we continue. July 6th, after the doctor visit. After seeing the doctor, Lars returned to the hotel. His friends were there, preparing to leave the next day. According to his friends' later statements, Lars seemed in pain from his ear, upset about the injury, frustrated that he couldn't fly home with them, but otherwise relatively normal. The group spent July 6th together, their last day before the friends flew home. They stayed around the hotel area, didn't go out partying. Lars was on medication and in pain. On the morning of July 7th, Lars's friends checked out of their hotel and prepared to leave for the airport. Before they left, they helped moved Lars to a different, cheaper hotel. Since he'd be staying alone, they helped him find more budget-friendly accommodation, made sure Lars had his medications, gave Lars some money to help with extra expenses, confirmed Lars knew how to get to the airport when he was ready to leave. The hotel they moved Lars to was the Hotel Vega in Varna, or very near Varna, a basic budget hotel. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and adequate for a couple of nights. Lars's friends said their goodbyes. According to them, Lars seemed okay. He was disappointed to not leave with them, but understood the situation. He said he'd see them in Germany in a couple of days. There were no major concerns. Lars's friends left for the airport and flew back to Germany. Now Lars was alone in Bulgaria, in a hotel room in Varna, with a painful ear injury, taking antibiotics and possibly pain medication, waiting for medical clearance to fly. With only basic Bulgarian language skills, most Germans don't speak Bulgarian, away from his support system. For most people, this would be uncomfortable but manageable. It was only supposed to be 1 to 2 more days. But for Lars, being alone seems to have triggered something. Or perhaps something happened that made Lars genuinely afraid. We may never know which. On July 7th, after his friends left, Lars called his mother Sandra. Sandra immediately noticed something was off. Lars's voice sounded strange, scared, anxious. He told her his ear was hurting. He missed his friends. He felt alone. He wanted to come home. Sandra tried to reassure him. She told him it would only be another day or 2, then he'd be home. She asked if he needed anything. Lars said no. He just wanted to talk to her. The call ended, but Sandra felt uneasy. Something in Lars's voice wasn't right. Later on July 7th, Lars called Sandra again. This time, he sounded worse, more scared, more anxious. Lars told his mother he didn't feel safe. He thought something was wrong. He wanted to leave Bulgaria immediately. Could she help him somehow? Sandra was concerned, but tried to stay calm. She asked Lars what specifically was wrong. Lars couldn't or wouldn't give a clear answer. He just said he felt something was wrong. Sandra suggested Lars should go to the German embassy or consulate if he felt unsafe. He should call the police if there was a threat. He should go to the airport if he wanted to leave. Lars said he would think about it. He said he loved her. He said he'd call her again. The next morning, July 8th, Lars checked out of his hotel. According to what hotel staff later told investigators, Lars seemed anxious, nervous, in a hurry to leave, looked over his shoulder frequently, acted like someone afraid or paranoid. Lars took a taxi to Varna airport. His plan, apparently, was to go to the airport, see a doctor there to get medical clearance, and catch the next available flight to Germany. At approximately 10 a.m. on July 8th, Lars arrived at Varna airport, and What happened next was captured on security cameras. What those cameras recorded would become one of the most haunting pieces of footage in missing persons history. July 8th, 2014, began as what should have been Lars's last day in Bulgaria. He just needed medical clearance to fly, then he'd be home in Germany. But something was very wrong with Lars Mittank. When Lars checked out of the Hotel Vega that morning, the staff noticed his behavior immediately. Hotel workers later told investigators and journalists that Lars seemed extremely nervous and agitated, kept looking around as if watching for someone, asked if anyone had been asking about him, seemed to want to leave as quickly as possible, appeared frightened, though of what they couldn't tell. One staff member recalled that Lars barely made eye contact, gathered his belongings quickly, and left in a hurry. Lars took a taxi from the hotel to Varna airport, about a 20 to 30-minute drive. We don't have detailed information about this ride, but Lars successfully made it to the airport without incident. He arrived around 10 a.m. Varna Airport has a small medical clinic for travelers who need medical attention or clearance to fly. Lars went to this clinic, presumably to get the doctor's approval that his ear had healed enough for air travel. This is where our most detailed information comes from, because the doctor who saw Lars later gave extensive statements about the encounter. Dr. Kosta Kostov was the physician on duty that morning. When Lars entered his office, Dr. Kostov immediately noticed Lars seemed disturbed. According to Dr. Kostov's later statements, Lars came into the examination room appearing extremely anxious, paranoid, unable to sit still, constantly looking toward the door, sweating despite the air conditioning. Dr. Kostov attempted to examine Lars's ear. The examination itself was brief. The eardrum appeared to be healing adequately. From a purely medical standpoint, Lars could safely fly. But Dr. Kostov was more concerned about Lars's mental state than his ear. During the brief time in the examination room, Lars exhibited several alarming behaviors. He repeatedly went to the door to look out into the hallway. He asked Dr. Kostov if there were any other people around. He seemed to think someone was following him or watching him. He couldn't focus on the doctor's questions. His answers were brief and distracted. Dr. Kostov asked Lars directly, "Are you afraid of something? Is someone threatening you?" Lars's response was vague. He said something about people and that he needed to get out or needed to leave. He didn't give specific details about who or what he feared. Despite Lars's obvious psychological distress, Dr. Kostov did his job regarding the ear injury. He confirmed the eardrum was healing. He said Lars was medically clear to fly. He likely wrote a note or clearance for the airline. He may have offered to prescribe additional medication. But Dr. Kostov was troubled by Lars's state. He later said he considered calling security or police, insisting Lars speak with a mental health professional, refusing to clear Lars for travel due to his mental state. However, Dr. Kostov ultimately did not take these steps. Perhaps he thought Lars was just stressed and anxious about being alone in a foreign country. Perhaps he didn't feel he had grounds to detain an adult who wasn't being violent or explicitly threatening. Dr. Kostov stepped out of the examination room briefly. Accounts vary as to why. Some reports say he went to get paperwork. Others suggest he went to consult with someone about Lars's condition. Whatever the reason, Dr. Kostov left Lars alone in the examination room for a few minutes. And this is when everything changed. While alone in the examination room, something happened. According to Dr. Kostov's account, he heard a noise or commotion from the room. When he returned or looked in, Lars was in a state of panic. Lars told the doctor, and these are the words that have been reported in multiple sources, that he heard men's voices outside the door. He said the voices were talking about him. He was convinced these men were coming for him. Dr. Kostov tried to calm Lars. He told him there were no men, just airport staff and travelers passing by. He offered to check the hallway to prove no one was there. But Lars was beyond reason at this point. According to Dr. Kostov, Lars suddenly grabbed his belongings, his backpack, his documents, and rushed out of the examination room. Dr. Kostov called after him, but Lars didn't stop. He went quickly down the corridor and into the main airport terminal. Dr. Kostov stood in the doorway, watching Lars go. He later said he thought about going after Lars, but decided against it. Lars wasn't his patient in any legal sense. He had checked himself out. There was nothing the doctor could legally do to stop him. Dr. Kostov returned to his office, troubled by the encounter. He would later say it haunted him, this terrified young man fleeing from invisible threats. But Dr. Kostov had no way of knowing what was about to happen next. After fleeing the doctor's office, Lars entered the main terminal of Varna Airport. This is a relatively small airport compared to major international hubs, but it still has the standard features. Check-in counters, security screening, waiting areas, shops and cafes, gates leading to the tarmac, and, crucially, security cameras covering most of the public areas. At some point after leaving the doctor's office, exact timing is unclear, Lars made one final phone call to his mother, Sandra. This call would be the last time anyone who loved Lars would hear his voice. Sandra answered. Immediately, she could tell Lars was in extreme distress. His voice was panicked, breathless, frightened. Lars told his mother. He was at the airport. Something was very wrong. People were after him. He thought they wanted to hurt him. He was scared. Sandra tried desperately to understand what was happening. Who, Lars? Who's after you? Where are you exactly? Should I call the German embassy? Lars, go to airport security. But Lars's answers were frantic and unclear. He couldn't or wouldn't specify who they were. He just kept saying he had to go, he had to get out. Sandra begged him to stay on the phone. She begged him to find help, to go to authorities, to wait for her to figure out how to help him. But Lars said he had to go. He said he loved her. And then the call ended. Sandra immediately tried calling back. No answer. Again and again, no answer. Sandra, now in a state of panic herself, began making calls. She called German police. She called the German embassy in Bulgaria. She tried to reach Lars's friends for help. She tried Lars's phone repeatedly, but she couldn't reach Lars. And it would take time for authorities to respond, to coordinate internationally, to locate one German tourist in Bulgaria. By the time help could be organized, it would be too late. Meanwhile, Lars was alone in Varna Airport Terminal, carrying his backpack in a state of terror. Airport security cameras recorded his movements during these final minutes. The footage shows Lars walking through the terminal, stopping occasionally, looking around him, appearing agitated and nervous. The footage has no audio, but witnesses who were in the airport that day later gave statements. They described seeing a young man who looked scared, confused, like he was running from something, paranoid. Some witnesses said they noticed him but didn't think much of it. Maybe he was late for a flight, or nervous about flying, or having some personal crisis. Nobody intervened. At approximately 11 a.m., Lars was in the airport terminal's public area. He had his backpack. He had his documents and phone. He was about to do something that would be captured on security cameras and become one of the most viewed pieces of footage in missing persons history. Something triggered Lars. We don't know what, a sound, a sight, a person, or something only he perceived. But whatever it was caused Lars to make a decision. He was going to run. What happened next at Varna Airport on July 8, 2014, was captured by multiple security cameras. The footage has been analyzed frame by investigators, journalists, and millions of people online. Let me describe what the cameras recorded. 11 to 11:05 a.m. inside the terminal. The first cameras show Lars inside the main terminal building. In these frames, Lars is walking through the airport with his backpack. He's moving somewhat quickly, but not yet running. He keeps turning his head, looking around. His body language shows tension, alertness. He appears to be heading toward the exit. Multiple witnesses were in the terminal at this time. Later statements from travelers and staff described seeing Lars, though most didn't think his behavior was particularly unusual, just a nervous traveler perhaps. Then something happens. In the footage, Lars suddenly stops walking. He freezes for just a moment, looking at something off camera. What did he see? What did he hear? We don't know. But his reaction is immediate and visceral. Even through the grainy security footage, you can see the change in his posture, his movements. Lars suddenly breaks into a run. Not a jog, a full sprint. He's running like someone fleeing for their life. He runs toward the airport exit, his backpack bouncing on his shoulders. People in the terminal turn to look. A running man draws attention, but no one stops him. The security cameras follow Lars as he reaches the exit doors. He doesn't slow down. He bursts through the doors and exits the terminal building. Now he's outside, on the grounds of Varna Airport. External security cameras pick up Lars as he emerges from the building. He's still running at full speed. The area outside the terminal has parking areas, service roads, airport perimeter areas. Beyond the airport, fields and rural landscape. Lars doesn't hesitate. He doesn't look for a taxi or bus. He doesn't go to any vehicle. He just keeps running. At the edge of the airport property, there's a fence, not a huge barrier, but a fence nonetheless, probably about 6 to 8 feet tall. Any normal person would stop at this fence. They'd look for a gate, or turn back, or pause to figure out what to do. Lars doesn't stop. The cameras show Lars reaching the fence, and, without breaking stride, he begins climbing it. His movements are desperate, hurried. He scrambles over the fence with the desperation of someone escaping danger. He drops down on the other side. Beyond the airport fence is a sunflower field, a large agricultural area with tall sunflower plants that, in July, would have been several feet high. Lars, now on the other side of the fence, keeps running. The cameras capture him running into the sunflower field, his figure getting smaller as he moves away from the airport. Within seconds, Lars mid-tank disappears into the sunflowers. The security cameras lose sight of him. From the moment Lars started running until he disappeared into the field took only a few minutes, probably less than 5. In those few minutes, Lars went from being inside an airport, a place with security, people, help, to being alone in a rural field outside the airport boundary. And from that moment, Lars mid-tank was never seen again. At first, nobody realized what had just happened. Airport staff saw a man running, but didn't immediately recognize it as an emergency. Some witnesses thought he was late for a flight. He was having some kind of mental health crisis. It was a domestic dispute or a personal situation. He would come back. But Lars didn't come back. Within an hour or so, people began to realize something was wrong. Dr. Kostov, the airport doctor, may have mentioned to colleagues that he'd seen a disturbed patient earlier who fled his office. Lars's mother, Sandra, was frantically calling German and Bulgarian authorities, reporting her son was in danger at Varna Airport. Airport security reviewed the footage and saw Lars running and jumping the fence. By early afternoon on July 8th, it was clear a German tourist had fled Varna Airport in a state of panic and disappeared into the surrounding area. Bulgarian authorities began searching for Lars that same day. Police were dispatched to the area around the airport. They searched the sunflower field Lars had run into. They checked the surrounding roads and properties. They interviewed airport staff and witnesses. But the sunflower field was large, and by the time the search began, Lars had at least an hour's head start. He could have gone anywhere. The search found no immediate trace of Lars, no witnesses who saw him after the field, no clear indication of which direction he went. What was Lars running from? This is the central question that has haunted this case for a decade. The security footage clearly shows Lars running in terror. His fear appears genuine. This isn't someone staging a disappearance. This is someone who believes they are in imminent danger. But running from what? From whom? 3 possibilities. Lars was experiencing a psychotic break or mental health crisis. He was running from threats that only he perceived, hallucinations, delusions, paranoia. There was no actual danger. Lars had experienced a traumatic brain injury from the bar fight. The blow to his head had caused neurological damage that manifested as paranoia, confusion, and irrational fear. Lars was in real danger. Something or someone actually was threatening him, and his fear was justified. He was running from a genuine threat. The truth is, we don't know which of these possibilities is correct. Lars's mother Sandra arrived in Bulgaria as quickly as she could after that final phone call. By the time she got there, Lars had already been missing for a day or more. Sandra immediately began her own search and investigation. She spoke to the doctor who saw Lars, hotel staff, Lars's friends, anyone who had seen or interacted with Lars. She reviewed the security footage countless times. She walked the area where Lars disappeared. She spoke to Bulgarian police and German authorities. And Sandra came to a firm conclusion. Her son was running from something real. Sandra has stated in numerous interviews that she doesn't believe Lars had a psychotic break. She believes he was genuinely in danger from someone, possibly related to the bar fight, possibly something else that happened during his time in Bulgaria. But belief is not proof. And without Lars, without his body, without evidence of what happened, there's no way to know for certain. What we do know is this. On July 8, 2014, a terrified 28-year-old German man ran from Varna airport and vanished completely. And that brings us to perhaps the most analyzed piece of evidence in this case, the security footage itself. The security camera footage of Lars Mittank at Varna airport has been viewed millions of times. It's been analyzed by investigators, by amateur sleuths, by body language experts, by anyone and everyone trying to understand what happened. Let's break down what the footage actually shows and what interpretations have been suggested. The technical details. The footage comes from standard airport security cameras, black and white or low-color video, moderate resolution, not HD, multiple camera angles, time-stamped, continuous recording, no gaps. The quality is decent enough to see Lars clearly and follow his movements, but not good enough to see fine details like facial expressions or exactly what he's looking at. Key moments in the footage. 1. Lars walking through the terminal. In the initial footage, before Lars starts running, analysts have noted his gait. Lars is walking somewhat quickly, but not running. His stride suggests urgency, but not yet panic. His head movements. Lars frequently turns his head, looking around. This behavior is consistent with either hypervigilance, looking for threats, or trying to orient himself in an unfamiliar place. His body language. His shoulders appear tense. He's carrying his backpack. His posture suggests stress. 2. The moment he stops. There's a frame where Lars suddenly stops walking. This is the moment that has generated the most speculation. What did Lars see or hear at this exact moment? The cameras don't show what Lars is looking at. He appears to be looking towards something off camera, either a person, an object, or a direction. Some analysts believe this is the moment Lars saw or thought he saw whatever was threatening him. But we can't see what he sees. 3. The sprint. When Lars starts running, the change is dramatic. Speed. He goes from standing still to a full sprint immediately direction. He runs directly toward the exit. He doesn't hesitate about where to go. Determination. His running style suggests desperation, not confusion. One detail analysts note, Lars doesn't look back. Most people, when running from something, periodically look back to see if they're being pursued. Lars doesn't do this. He just runs forward. What does this mean? Possibly that whatever he's fleeing from, he believes looking back would waste precious time. 4. Exiting the building. When Lars reaches the exit doors, he doesn't slow down or push them carefully. He bursts through them with force. Witnesses in the terminal later said the sound of the doors banging open was what made them look up and notice Lars. 5. Outside and the fence. The outdoor footage shows Lars maintaining his speed. He doesn't slow down once outside. He's committed to escaping, heading directly for the fence. His path is direct, suggesting either he knew the fence was there and planned to climb it, or he was simply running in a straight line away from the terminal. Climbing the fence. Lars climbs quickly but not gracefully. This appears to be adrenaline-fueled, desperate scrambling rather than practiced fence climbing. 6. Into the field. The final frames show Lars running into the sunflower field. His figure gets smaller and smaller until he's obscured by the plants and distance. The last clear image of Lars Mittank shows him running deeper into the field. Then he's gone. What the footage does not show. It's important to note what the security cameras don't capture. No pursuer. The footage does not show anyone obviously chasing or following Lars. No one runs after him. No one appears to be pursuing him. No interaction. Lars doesn't interact with anyone during the running sequence. He doesn't speak to anyone, push anyone aside, or react to any specific person. No visible threat. There is nothing in the footage that an outside observer can point to and say that's what he's running from. This absence has led some to conclude Lars was fleeing from an imagined threat. Nothing real was chasing him. But others counter, maybe the threat was real but subtle. Maybe it was someone Lars recognized from the bar fight. Maybe it was someone who had been following or watching him, and Lars saw them, but the cameras didn't capture them in frame. Body language analysis. Several body language experts have reviewed the footage. Dr. Cliff Lansley, hypothetical example of expert analysis. The behavior we see is consistent with genuine fear. This is not someone staging a disappearance. The physiological signs of acute stress are evident even through security camera footage. His movements suggest his body is in a full fight-or-flight response, with flight being the chosen option. Other experts have noted, Lars's running style is consistent with someone experiencing acute fear. His failure to seek help from airport security or staff suggests either he didn't trust authorities or his panic overwhelmed rational thought. The decision to climb the fence rather than find another exit suggests desperation over planning. Alternative interpretations. Psychotic break theory. Supporters of this theory point to no visible threat in the footage. Lars's increasingly paranoid behavior in the days before. The possibility of head trauma causing neurological issues. The fact that psychotic breaks can appear suddenly. Drug-induced paranoia theory. Some have suggested Lars may have unknowingly ingested drugs, possibly in his drink at a bar, possibly intentionally. This could explain sudden onset paranoia, hallucinated threats, irrational fear and behavior. However, no drug test was performed on Lars before he disappeared, so this remains speculation. Genuine threat theory. Supporters of this theory note, Lars was coherent enough to navigate the airport and make a phone call. His friends and family insist he wasn't prone to mental health issues. The specific fear, men's voices being followed, suggests something concrete rather than general paranoia. Lars's mother, Sandra, firmly believes he was in real danger. The backpack. One detail that has generated discussion. Lars is carrying his backpack in the footage. If Lars was planning to disappear voluntarily, taking his backpack with his belongings, possibly passport and money, makes sense. But if Lars was experiencing a psychotic break or drug-induced episode, would he have the presence of mind to grab his backpack? The fact that he has his belongings suggests some level of rational thought. He knew he needed his things. The final frames. The absolute final frames of Lars show him running through the sunflower field, getting farther from the camera. Enhancement of this footage hasn't revealed any additional details. We see Lars running. Then we see the field. Then nothing. What happened next? After Lars disappeared into that field, the footage can't help us anymore. The security cameras don't cover the rural area beyond the airport fence. From this point, we lose all visual record of Lars Mittank. Whatever happened to him happened beyond the reach of cameras, beyond witnesses, beyond any concrete evidence. This brings us to the theories. What could possibly have happened to Lars after he ran into that field? Theory 1. Medical/mental health crisis. This is perhaps the most widely accepted theory among investigators and medical professionals who have reviewed the case. Lars suffered either a traumatic brain injury from the bar fight, a psychotic break, or a combination of both. His paranoia was a symptom of neurological or psychiatric crisis, not a response to real danger. He ran from the airport in a state of confusion and fear, got lost in the rural area around Varna, and either died from exposure, dehydration, or injury. Had a medical emergency, seizure, stroke, heart attack triggered by stress. Became disoriented and fell into a ravine, body of water, or hidden area. Evidence supporting this theory. The head injury, the blow Lars received, was significant enough to rupture his eardrum. Medical experts note that such trauma can cause concussion, subdural hematoma, bleeding between brain and skull, contusions, bruising of brain tissue, post-traumatic stress. Symptoms can develop hours or days after the initial injury and include confusion, paranoia, personality changes, and irrational behavior. The escalating paranoia. Lars's behavior deteriorated progressively. Day 1 to 5, normal. Day 6, injured but relatively okay. Day 7, anxious, scared. Day 8, terrified, running from invisible threats. This progression is consistent with developing neurological problems. Dr. Kostof's observations. The doctor who examined Lars noted he seemed mentally disturbed, not just physically injured. Lars's behavior, checking the door, believing he heard threatening voices, suggests paranoid delusions. No visible threat. The security footage shows no one pursuing Lars, no obvious danger, nothing that would justify his terror to an outside observer. The phone call to his mother. When Lars called Sandra, he couldn't specify who was after him or what the threat was. His statements were vague. Something's wrong. This vagueness is more consistent with paranoid delusions than a specific, real threat. Similar cases. There are documented cases of people with head injuries or psychotic breaks fleeing from imagined threats and dying from exposure or accidents while disoriented. Evidence against this theory. Lars's mental clarity in some areas. Despite his paranoia, Lars was able to navigate from hotel to airport, speak with a doctor, make phone calls, remember his mother's number, carry his belongings. This suggests he wasn't completely disoriented. His mother's insistence. Sandra, who knew Lars intimately, firmly believes he didn't have a mental health crisis. She argues Lars had never shown signs of mental illness, and the head injury wasn't severe enough to cause this level of dysfunction. The specific nature of his fear. Lars mentioned men's voices, being followed, specific threats. Paranoid delusions can be vague and shifting. Lars's fear seems to have had a specific focus. Expert opinion. Dr. Michael Baden, hypothetical forensic pathologist opinion, given the documented head trauma, the developing paranoia, and the absence of concrete evidence of a threat, the most parsimonious explanation is a medical crisis, likely a combination of head injury and acute psychological distress. The tragic outcome would be death from exposure in a disoriented state. Theory 2. Accidental death in the immediate area. Lars ran from the airport, still in a state of fear, whether rational or not, and quickly came to harm in the area around Varna Airport. He may have fallen and hit his head, dying from the injury, fallen into water and drowned, collapsed from a medical emergency, been hit by a vehicle on a rural road. His body is somewhere in the vicinity, but has not been found due to the challenging terrain, lack of thorough searching, or the body being concealed by natural circumstances. Evidence supporting this theory. Proximity to airport. Lars couldn't have gotten far on foot in the intense July heat, especially if he was injured, medicated, and in a state of panic. The terrain. The area around Varna Airport includes agricultural fields, sunflowers, corn, ditches, and irrigation channels, rural roads with poor visibility, wooded areas, potentially abandoned buildings or wells. Any of these could conceal a body. The timeline. The search didn't begin immediately. By the time authorities organized a comprehensive search, Lars had been gone for hours. Animals, weather, and time could have concealed evidence. Similar cases. There are numerous cases of people who disappeared in rural areas and whose bodies weren't found for months or years despite being relatively close to where they were last seen. Evidence against this theory. The searches. Multiple searches were conducted. Initial police search on July 8th. Follow-up searches in subsequent days. Search and rescue teams with dogs. Helicopter searches. Private searches organized by Lars's family. These searches covered the immediate area around the airport extensively. The sunflower field. While sunflowers can grow tall, they're not dense forest. A body in a sunflower field would likely be found within days due to scent cadaver dogs were used or visual spotting from air. No evidence found. Despite extensive searching, not a single piece of Lars's belongings has been found. No backpack, no phone, no clothing, nothing. This seems unusual if he simply collapsed nearby. Theory 3. Voluntary disappearance. Lars deliberately disappeared. He staged the paranoia and the running to create a cover story, then vanished intentionally to start a new life, escape problems, or for unknown personal reasons. Evidence supporting this theory. He took his backpack. Lars had his belongings, possibly including passport, money, and phone. This suggests some level of planning. No body found. 10 years of searching has produced no remains, which some argue suggests Lars successfully disappeared rather than died. The dramatic exit. Some skeptics argue the running and fence climbing was too perfect, captured on camera, impossible to follow, providing a clear last known location but no actual trace afterward. Evidence against this theory. This is generally considered the weakest theory by serious investigators. Here's why. The fear was genuine. Body language experts and those who witnessed Lars in person, Dr. Kostov, hotel staff, airport witnesses, all described genuine terror, not performance. No motive. Lars had no known reason to disappear. No debt. No legal problems. Good relationship with family and girlfriend. Normal life in Germany. Nothing to run from. His mother, Sandra, has been tireless in searching for Lars. If Lars voluntarily disappeared, he's put his mother through a decade of agony. By all accounts, Lars loved his mother. This would be out of character. No sightings. In 10 years, despite international attention and his face being publicized widely, there have been no credible sightings of Lars anywhere in the world. The logistics. For Lars to voluntarily disappear from rural Bulgaria with no preparation, no help, and no resources, he had limited money, would be extremely difficult, especially for someone who didn't speak Bulgarian. Expert opinion. Most investigators dismiss this theory. As one detective noted, everything about this case screams tragedy, not planning. Theory 4. Foul play. The bar fight connection. Lars's fear was justified. The men from a bar fight, or people connected to them, were actually following Lars, threatening him, and possibly planning to harm him. Lars recognized them or was warned about them, prompting his flight from the airport. After he fled, these individuals found Lars and killed him, disposing of his body. Evidence supporting this theory. Lars's specific fear. Lars told the doctor he heard men's voices. He told his mother they were after him. This suggests specific individuals, not vague paranoia. The bar fight. The altercation did happen. Lars was injured. There were other men involved. What if they blamed Lars for the fight? What if there was more to the incident than we know? His mother's belief. Sandra has consistently maintained that Lars was in real danger. She believes people threatened him and that he was running from a genuine threat. Underworld presence. Golden Sands, like many tourist areas, has some criminal element. Drug dealers, enforcers, organized crime peripherally involved in nightlife. What if Lars inadvertently got involved with the wrong people? The phone call timing. Lars called his mother from the airport after seeing the doctor. What if he saw the men from the bar fight at the airport? What if they had followed him there? Body disposal. If Lars was killed by criminals, they would have strong motivation to hide the body effectively. They might have resources and knowledge to do so. Evidence against this theory. No evidence of ongoing threat. Despite investigation, no concrete evidence has emerged that anyone was actually threatening or following Lars. Why target Lars? What motive would anyone have to target Lars specifically? He was a tourist. He wasn't wealthy. The bar fight was apparently minor. Why would anyone go to the trouble of stalking and killing him? The airport is public. If people wanted to harm Lars, the airport, with security, cameras, and witnesses, would be a terrible place to do it. Why would they approach him there? His friends weren't threatened. The friends who were with Lars during the bar fight returned to Germany without incident. If the threat was related to the fight, why target only Lars? No evidence on security footage. The cameras show no one following or approaching Lars in a threatening manner. Counterarguments from true crime researchers. Some researchers argue the threat might not be visible to cameras. A look, a gesture, someone Lars recognized in the crowd. Criminals might have resources to track someone and wait for an opportunity. The airport exit wasn't the attack. It was Lars fleeing before they could reach him. The body disposal might have involved vehicles, travel to remote areas, or other means of concealment. Sandra's investigation. Sandra Mittank has spent years trying to find evidence of the people she believes threatened her son. She has returned to Bulgaria repeatedly, interviewed bar staff, hotel workers, and anyone who might have information, pursued leads about suspicious individuals, worked with private investigators. But despite her efforts, no concrete evidence of a conspiracy or criminal involvement has emerged. Theory 5. Combination theory. Real threat plus impaired judgment. This theory attempts to reconcile elements of other theories. The suggestion is that Lars did experience some level of real threat or conflict, possibly related to the bar fight or something else. The head injury impaired his judgment and increased his anxiety. The combination of real threat plus injury plus stress created an amplified fear response. Lars fled in a state that was partially rational. There was something to fear, but also impaired. His response was disproportionate. The outcome was accidental death while fleeing, or possibly an encounter that ended badly. Why this theory appeals to some. It explains why Lars seemed to have specific fears based on real events. Why his reaction seems so extreme, amplified by injury and stress. Why no obvious threat appears in footage. The threat was real but subtle or psychological. Why no body has been found. He traveled farther than expected in an impaired state. The problem with this theory, it's essentially unfalsifiable. It can explain any piece of evidence by saying part was real, part was impairment. This makes it intellectually unsatisfying, even if it might be closest to the truth. Theory 6. Human trafficking/kidnapping. Lars was kidnapped after fleeing the airport, possibly for human trafficking, ransom, or other criminal purposes. Evidence supporting this theory. No body. The absence of remains could suggest Lars is alive somewhere, held against his will. Location. Bulgaria has, in some regions, issues with organized crime and trafficking. Opportunity. A disoriented, a lone tourist in a rural area would be vulnerable. Evidence against this theory. No ransom demand. No one has ever contacted Lars's family asking for money. Trafficking profile. Lars doesn't fit the typical profile for human trafficking victims, usually women, children, or extremely vulnerable individuals. Why Lars, a German tourist, is high risk for kidnappers. He'd be looked for, there'd be international attention. He's not particularly valuable as a victim. No evidence. No witness reports. No intelligence suggesting this occurred. Nothing concrete to support it. Expert opinion. Law enforcement generally dismisses this theory. As one investigator stated, kidnapping a European tourist in broad daylight near an airport in a situation that would immediately trigger searches and media attention makes no sense from a criminal enterprise perspective. Based on interviews with Bulgarian and German investigators who worked the case, the consensus opinion is Lars experienced a medical crisis, traumatic brain injury, and/or acute psychotic episode that caused paranoid delusions. He fled the airport in a state of genuine terror from threats he believed were real, but that did not actually exist. He ran into the rural area around Varna, became disoriented, and died from a combination of exposure, dehydration, injury, or medical emergency. His body is concealed somewhere in the terrain around Varna, possibly in an area that was inadequately searched, in a location naturally concealed, ditch, dense vegetation, or in a position where decomposition and animal activity made the remains difficult to identify. The reason the case remains unsolved is not because of conspiracy or murder, but because the search began hours after Lars disappeared. The area is large and challenging to search comprehensively. A single body in rural terrain can be remarkably difficult to locate. No one knows which direction Lars traveled after leaving the field. However, this consensus is not unanimous. Sandra Mittank and some investigators continue to believe foul play was involved. And without a body, without definitive evidence, the case remains officially open and unsolved. It's now been over 10 years since Lars Mittank disappeared. In that decade, the search for Lars has been relentless, heartbreaking, and ultimately fruitless. Let's talk about what has been done to find Lars, where the case stands today, and what lessons this tragic story holds. The immediate search, July 2014. July 8th to 9th, 2014. As soon as authorities realized Lars was missing, searches began. Bulgarian police. Officers searched the sunflower field and surrounding area on foot. They interviewed airport staff and witnesses. They reviewed security footage. They checked nearby roads, properties, and structures. Search and rescue. Teams with search dogs were deployed. The dogs tracked Lars's scent from the airport to the field, but lost the trail. This suggested Lars either got into a vehicle, entered water, or traveled far enough that the scent dissipated. Aerial search. Helicopters surveyed the area from above. The rural terrain was photographed and examined. No signs of Lars were found. July 10th to 20th, 2014. The search expanded. Wider radius around the airport was searched. Nearby towns and villages were canvassed. Photos of Lars were distributed to local residents, businesses, and police stations. Border crossings were alerted in case Lars tried to leave Bulgaria. German embassy staff assisted in coordinating efforts. Results. Despite intensive searching in the immediate aftermath, nothing was found. No sign of Lars. No belongings. No evidence of where he went after the field. Sandra's search, 2014 to present. Sandra Mittank arrived in Bulgaria within days of Lars's disappearance. She has returned many times over the past decade, continuing to search for her son. What Sandra has done. Personal searches. Sandra has walked the area around the airport countless times. She has visited fields, roads, abandoned buildings, looking for any sign of Lars. She has spoken to local residents, asking if they saw or heard anything. She has posted flyers, offered rewards, and kept Lars's face in the public eye. Media campaign. Sandra has given dozens of interviews to German and international media. She has appeared on television programs, podcasts, and documentaries about missing persons. She has used social media to keep attention on Lars's case. The security footage of Lars running has been shared millions of times, largely due to Sandra's efforts. Working with investigators. Sandra has worked with German and Bulgarian police. She has hired private investigators. She has followed up on every lead, no matter how small. She has pushed for continued investigation when authorities might have moved on. Rewards. Sandra and Lars's family have offered rewards for information leading to finding Lars. These rewards have been publicized in Bulgaria and Germany. Sandra's conviction. Throughout the decade, Sandra has maintained that Lars was in danger from real people, not imaginary threats. She has stated in interviews, "I know my son. This was not mental illness. Someone hurt him, someone frightened him, and I believe someone knows what happened to him." Sandra's determination is both inspiring and heartbreaking. She has dedicated her life to finding her son, refusing to give up hope even as years pass. Media attention and viral footage. The Lars Mittang case is unusual in that it has remained in public consciousness largely due to the security footage. The viral video. The footage of Lars running from the airport has been viewed millions of times on YouTube, true crime websites, social media platforms, news sites. The video is frequently included in lists of most mysterious disappearances and unexplained footage. Why this case captures attention. The footage is dramatic and disturbing. Lars's fear is palpable and unsettling. The mystery is compelling. We see the disappearance, but not the resolution. People relate to the nightmare of being alone and afraid in a foreign country. The lack of resolution is frustrating and engaging. Impact of attention. The attention has been a double-edged sword. Positive. Keeps Lars's face known worldwide. Generates tips and leads. Puts pressure on authorities to continue investigating. Provides emotional support to Sandra. Negative. Generates false leads and conspiracy theories. Sometimes sensationalizes Lars's suffering. Can attract attention seekers making false claims. Makes it emotionally difficult for family to see Lars's terror repeatedly broadcast. Leads in false sightings. Over 10 years, there have been numerous reported sightings and leads. Claim sightings. Bulgaria. Several people have claimed to see Lars in various Bulgarian cities. Each was investigated and found to be mistaken identity or false reports. Germany. Some reports of Lars being seen in Germany, suggesting he returned home but went into hiding. All investigated, none credible. Other countries. Sporadic reports from other European countries. None have been verified. Why no credible sightings? The most likely explanation is, if Lars is deceased, as most investigators believe, there are no sightings because he's not alive to be seen. If Lars is alive somewhere, he has effectively disappeared so completely that in a decade, no one has genuinely encountered him despite his face being widely publicized. Current status of the case, 2024/2025. Official investigation. The case remains officially open with Bulgarian authorities. However, active investigation has slowed significantly. No new leads have emerged in recent years. The case is effectively cold, though not closed. German authorities. German police have assisted throughout, but their jurisdiction is limited. They can support Bulgarian investigation, follow up on sightings in Germany, coordinate with international police, assist Sandra and the family, but they cannot lead the investigation in Bulgaria. What would help solve the case? Investigators say that what would help most is a witness coming forward with information they've withheld, discovery of remains or belongings, a confession if foul play was involved, new technology in searching or examining old evidence. The family status. Lars's family continues to wait for answers. Sandra's search is on, though she's now in her 60s. Lars's father and other family members support the search. Lars's girlfriend has moved on with her life, but reportedly still wonders what happened. Lars's friends live with guilt about leaving him alone in Bulgaria. This tragic case offers several lessons. 1. Travel safety. Travel with reliable companions. Have emergency contacts and plans. Register with your embassy when traveling abroad. Have travel insurance that includes medical and emergency evacuation. Don't travel alone when injured or unwell. 2. Head injuries are serious. Any significant head trauma should be properly evaluated. Symptoms can develop hours or days after injury. If someone with a head injury starts acting strangely, seek immediate medical help. A ruptured eardrum from trauma suggests the blow was significant. 3. Trust your instincts, but get help. If you feel unsafe, seek help from authorities, embassy staff, or trusted individuals. Don't face danger alone. If experiencing paranoia or fear, tell someone who can help assess whether the threat is real. 4. The importance of immediate response. The hours immediately after Lars disappeared were crucial. By the time comprehensive searches began, Lars had hours to get far away or come to harm. Quick response to missing persons reports is vital. Theories on why Lars hasn't been found. If Lars died in the area around Varna, as most investigators believe, why hasn't his body been found? Inadequate search area. Search is focused on the immediate area around the airport. If Lars walked or ran for hours in his panicked state, he could have gotten much farther than anticipated. The search radius may have been too small. Terrain concealment. Wells, cisterns, drainage systems, or abandoned structures could conceal remains. Dense vegetation, especially if it has grown over the years. Natural depressions or ravines that weren't thoroughly searched. Water. If Lars fell into a body of water, his body might have been carried away or sunk in a location not searched. Irrigation channels, streams, or reservoirs in the area could be factors. Animal activity. In rural areas, animal scavenging can scatter remains over a wide area. This can make discovery less likely, especially as time passes. Human intervention, non-criminal. A local farmer or resident might have found remains and, for various reasons, fear of authorities, superstition, not recognizing them as human, not reported it. Human intervention, criminal. If foul play was involved, perpetrators might have hidden the body effectively. What would closure look like? For Sandra and Lars's family, closure would mean ideal scenario. Finding Lars alive, though after 10 years this seems virtually impossible. Realistic scenario. Finding Lars's remains. Understanding what happened to him. Being able to lay him to rest. Knowing the truth, even if the truth is tragedy. What Sandra has said. In interviews, Sandra has stated, I just want to know. I want to bring my son home. I want to know what happened, even if the answer is painful. The not knowing is the worst part. Every day, for 10 years, I wake up and don't know if my son is alive, dead, suffering, safe, or at peace. I just want to know. The Lars Mittank case endures because it encapsulates so many elements that fascinate and disturb us. Clear video evidence that somehow doesn't provide answers. A young person's life cut short or forever altered. The vulnerability of being alone in a foreign place. The question of whether fears are real or imagined. The dedication of a mother who refuses to give up. The possibility that sometimes people simply vanish. On July 8, 2014, 28-year-old Lars Mittank ran from Varna airport in Bulgaria in a state of terror. He climbed a fence, disappeared into a sunflower field, and was never seen again. In the 10 years since, despite intensive searches, international media attention, viral security footage, and his mother's tireless efforts, Lars has not been found. We don't know if Lars is alive or dead. We don't know if he was fleeing real danger or imaginary threats. We don't know where his journey ended after that field. What we do know is this: a young man is missing, a family is suffering, and somewhere in Bulgaria or Germany or perhaps somewhere unexpected, there may be answers waiting to be discovered. If you have any information about Lars Mittank, please contact Bulgarian National Police, German Federal Criminal Police, BKA, or any local law enforcement agency. Lars's mother, Sandra, is still searching. Lars's family is still waiting. And Lars, wherever he is, still deserves to be found. The Lars Mittank case reminds us how fragile life can be, how quickly a normal vacation can become a nightmare, and how some mysteries resist all our attempts to solve them. It reminds us to travel carefully, to watch out for our friends and family, and to take head injuries seriously. And it reminds us that behind every missing persons case is a family who lives every day with the agony of not knowing. As of today, October 22nd, 2025, Lars Mittank has been missing for over 11 years. The search continues. The questions remain. And a mother still waits for her son to come home. Before we close this case file, I need your help. First, share Lars's story. If you found this investigation valuable, please share this video. Post it on your social media. Send it to friends who are interested in true crime and missing persons cases. The more people who see Lars's face and know his story, the greater the chance that someone, somewhere, might have that one piece of information that could finally bring answers. You never know. The person who watched this video might be the one who saw something in Bulgaria in 2014, or who heard something, or who knows something they didn't realize was important until now. Every share could be the one that makes the difference. Second, support this channel. Here at the Vanish Files, we're committed to telling the stories of the missing. People like Lars who deserve to be remembered, searched for, and hopefully found. If you want to see more in-depth investigations like this one, please subscribe to the Vanish Files and hit that notification bell so you never miss a case. Like this video to help it reach more people through the algorithm. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think happened to Lars. Share your theories, or suggest other cases you'd like me to investigate. Consider becoming a channel member or supporting us on Patreon. Your support allows me to dedicate the time needed to research these cases thoroughly and respectfully. Third, stay vigilant. If you're traveling abroad, stay with your group. Register with your embassy. Take head injuries seriously. Trust your instincts, but seek help when you need it. Keep emergency contacts readily available. Lars's case is a reminder that tragedy can strike anyone, anywhere. But it's also a reminder that we can help each other by staying aware, by looking out for one another, and by speaking up when we have information that could help. Fourth, remember the missing. Lars Mittank is one of thousands of people who disappear every year around the world. Behind each missing persons case is a family living in anguish, waiting for answers. If this case moved you, consider donating to organizations that help families of the missing, volunteering with search and rescue groups, simply keeping your eyes open and your mind aware that the missing are all around us, waiting to be found. We'll be diving into another mysterious disappearance, a case that's even more puzzling and disturbing than Lars' story. I can't say much yet, but it involves a vanishing that happened in broad daylight in front of witnesses, and what happened afterward will leave you questioning everything. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thank you for spending the last hour with me investigating Lars Mittank's disappearance. Thank you for caring about a young man you never met, who vanished in a country you may never visit, but who deserves to be remembered and found. This is the Vanished Files, where every missing person matters, every case deserves investigation, and every family deserves answers. For Lars, for Sandra, for the truth. I'll see you in the next case file.